Also with the Jake decoy, you want to have the head, if you're the hunter, at some angle towards you, because that will dictate how that bird moves into that decoy. If you ever watch how they approach, they always approach the head end of a Jake and always the tail end of the hen.
What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic here, Mr. Ryan Muckenhern across from me. And with us today in studio, very special guest, Mr. Dave Constantine. Now, we're going to talk turkey. We've been talking turkey. In fact, we're a little bit late to this podcast because we were all getting our leftover turkey tags today. We're talking about turkey decoy postures, what they mean, when to use them. Dave, you dropped something before we started recording here, flock dynamics. Really excited to hear about that. But before we jump in to this part of the discussion, I don't think we can do that without talking about you and your background, Dave. You do a lot of carving. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube, we have a bunch of turkey decoys on the table. Dave, these are molds made off of your wood carvings, yes?
Yeah, exactly. They are actually, I would call them the end product from life-size carvings that I did and designed for various companies. I've done a lot of that over the years. Make my living as a wood carver and sculptor and a call maker.
That's awesome. I'm going to read something here, guys. This is from an NWTF article. It's an excerpt. It's by the author is Matthew Brewer. It says Dave Constantine needs no introduction. I'm actually using this as my introduction. The irony. He's an 11-time NWTF Grand National Call Maker of the Year, Earl Mickle Award winner, 4-time NWTF Grand National Champion of Champions, and one of the most likable guys in the industry. We're going to put that last part to the test today.
Okay.
That's just, and that's probably the short list.
Kind of. Yeah, it kind of is. If to elaborate, the Champion of Champions is now 6 times as of just this past February. So, and there has been there's been a lot of other awards. I compete every year also in the waterfowl division, and so that I'm just kind of having fun with that. And I've won about 50 first place awards for waterfowl call making. So it's not just the turkey thing, and then besides that, I mentioned I make a living as a carver and call maker. I've been doing that for, since 1983.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, incredible. What, Wisconsin native?
Yes.
Where are you from, Dave?
I was born in Durand, Wisconsin, just south of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, on the western side of the state. Yeah. 71 years ago.
Well, you don't look it, I can tell you that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I don't feel it.
It's that turkey hunting keeps you.
I think so.
Oh, it does.
I think so.
It does.
Got to have that turkey mindset. What were you always interested in wildlife and art, Dave?
Yeah, I was. Growing up, I can remember I liked to draw.
Okay.
I think a lot of kids like to draw when they're kids, but my dad kept a lot of my drawings from 6 years old, and when I look back on them, they were pretty good. They weren't your average 6-year-old thing. The whole deal is a blessing, seriously. It's just a gift.
Yeah.
And I worked various jobs through 1983. Everything from welding and butchering, all kinds of things. Worked on the railroad as a tie puller for years. And in 1983, I told Nancy, I said, I'm going to quit and see if I can make a go of it and never look back.
I love it.
I bet this beats tie pulling.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so.
I don't even know what tie pulling is, but I know what pulling is, and I know what railroad ties are.
It was a big tool, looked like ice tongs,
Yeah.
and you would physically pull the tie out from under the railroad
Yeah,
tie.
this is better.
Yeah.
I can, just hearing you talk, I can feel my lower back exploding.
Yeah.
You did, so as in that same article that I was quoting, you studied wildlife management and art for a little bit. And
did.
Then you said, nah, I'm going to Hawaii.
That is true. I went to Stevens Point, UW Stevens Point, and majored in art and minored in biology. And it was, of course, back then, if you do the math, it was right at towards the end of the Vietnam War. Still
Okay.
had the draft, all that kind of stuff. Long story short, immediately melded into what I call the hippie age, and all my professors had the rose-colored glasses and long hair and wore the tie-dyed shirts, and I got an F in art. On second semester, and I called my buddy up. I said, I've had enough of this. We bought a car, drove it to Seattle, Washington, put it on a boat, and flew to Hawaii, and I became a commercial fisherman on a 16-foot V-bottom boat with a Japanese guy, local guy, and we did that every day till I came home.
Did you have that lined up before you got there?
No.
No.
No, had no idea what we were going to do. It was just had enough of that thing, and I thought, well, he became a bellhop at the hotels. Yeah. And this guy, we rented a house immediately, and we got the neighbor was a Japanese fella, probably at the time in his 50s, and his son was moving to the mainland to go to college, and he said, you wouldn't want to go fishing, would you? And I said, sure, why? He said, well, that's how I make a living. They just sell fish to the fresh fish markets every day, and you go out in the ocean. And it was one of the most awesome experiences of my life. It was fantastic.
I can think of a lot worse ways to spend a day.
Yeah. So that's what we did every day.
Oh, that is awesome. But eventually, the call of home brought you back to Wisconsin, yeah?
Yeah, if you ever been to Hawaii, it's one thing to go there. It's absolutely beautiful. But to live there, you can't go but 90 miles and you're back where you started from. And that, a lot of people are fine with that. But I just got to a point I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back home. I met my beautiful bride, Nancy, and rest is history.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? I got back to Wisconsin a little too soon.
Yeah.
Because you did some turkey hunting in Hawaii.
I was going to mention that's where I actually got introduced to turkey hunting.
Really?
And it was by accident because being a hunter by nature, I had a friendship with a Filipino guy about the same age, and we would go up in the lava flows on the Big Island, and we would go up Mauna Kea and hunt for Spanish goats and mouflon sheep, which are indigenous to Hawaii only because the Spaniards brought them there. I don't know when, at some point in time. And there was always wild turkey flocks around. I got asking him, and he said, oh, yeah, you can hunt them every day if you want. At that time, you could. And so that's where I got introduced, and I shot. They're Rio Grande subspecies, and I shot several wild turkeys there. Interesting, hunting them is different because it's kind of a jungle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hardwoods of any kind. There's big ferny-looking trees and palm trees and a lot of understory. And so you would actually, what would trigger them to gobble, and their whole mating thing was different because it was triggered by moisture. So whenever you had rainfall, then the wild turkeys on the Big Island would strut and gobble. If you didn't have rainfall, they wouldn't do anything. So you had to kind of approach them from that.
That's really interesting because, know, down here it seems like, you get some rain and, birds will be potentially like really visible like in a farm field or something like that. But they're a little bit more at least I find them to be a little bit more shut down.
They are. Sure, by nature. Here especially. I think it's just because of their environment. That's the way it is. And it's usually cooler when it rains. So we literally would move into that area when we had damper light rains. We'd move into the area where they were. And then they would filter out into the open areas from these jungle type areas, and there wasn't a lot of calling involved. It was more or less spot and stalk or ambush and that type of thing. But that was my first introduction into wild turkeys, period.
I mean, one thing I didn't know before reading that is that Hawaii actually had birds before Wisconsin. I would have just thought, intuitively, I would have thought the other way around, like, oh, we established these birds in the Midwest, and then, then we go tropical. But that's pretty cool.
And that's true. They've had them there a long time. I don't know the exact history. I just know that what has happened now, so you've got, when you hear turkey hunters talk about the Grand Slam, the World Slam, so the Grand Slam was always the 4 subspecies, Eastern Merriam's, Rio Grande, and Osceola, the South Florida bird. And then you talk about the World Slam, the addition would be the Goulds, and then the ocellated of the Yucatan Peninsula. And now the Hawaiian Rio Grande has become part of the Slam.
Oh,
so
interesting.
now there's an additional bird, and happens to be the Hawaiian bird.
And it's just because of the location?
I think the location and the fact that you hunt them a little bit different. You know how turkeys are. If they can add something to that whole spectrum there, I'm on it.
Give me a reason to go. That is awesome. So you make your way back to Wisconsin. Like you said, maybe got a little bit of island fever out there.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yeah. I might have run out of money. I don't remember. No, we did well on the fish market, fishing there. But yeah, I just came back home and, I came back to Durand area. Nancy and we met up shortly after that. And, yeah.
And then when did you start carving?
Well, I've always been an illustrator. I mentioned illustrating as a kid, but even in high school, I was doing freelance drawing illustration for book authors and magazines. You guys probably remember Deer and Deer Hunting magazine back when. The Stump Sitters, it originally was called.
Yeah.
It was 2 guys, and they started this magazine back in the day when there weren't a lot of magazines, just strictly for whitetails. And those guys would contract me if you have any of the really old issues. There's a lot of my drawings in that. I did book illustrations for book authors and other magazines as well. Did a lot of logo designs for companies across the country, and then I don't know what triggered it. I just always had this urge to maybe put that skill to 3-dimension. And it was real close to the time, too, that Wisconsin started, I believe, Zone 1. Do you know what year Zone 1's first season was? It was around that time because I remember we applied. There was Zone 1, 2, and 3 is all there were. And a doctor friend of myself, we applied for a turkey tag, and they had 18 available. And we drew 2 of those.
Oh, my gosh.
And so we hunted over in Crawford County, not too far from here, along the river, along Mississippi. And I decided to that's how the whole call thing started. I thought, well, it'd be cool to make a call. and kill a bird with it, make one myself. And about that same time, I was kind of teaching myself how to carve.
Wow.
So it all came together about the same time.
How'd that first Wisconsin season go for you?
It went really well. First of all, the call I made was a box call. I still have it in my collection. And it sounded terrible. It really did.
So does mine, but I think it's operator error.
But God bless this 2-year-old gobbler. I mean, I did a few yelps, what I considered yelps on it, and sitting by a tree. I mean, early on, a lot of the upper Midwest guys, all of us, Wisconsin, Minnesota, hell, we weren't introduced to turkey hunting like this, the southern boys were. So it was really new to us. But this gobbler answered me. I swear to God, he was a half mile away. And he came the whole distance, and I screwed it up. I never killed him. He actually came behind me and poked his head out about here to that decoy away. That was the end of everything there. But from then on, I've been hooked on this whole deal, even more so with turkey hunting.
I imagine back then, like you said, 18 tags. Goodness, like right now, and of course, turkeys and regions of the South are struggling to a degree right now, and we're seeing some of that in the Midwest. But still thousands of tags, and but I imagine back then, man, if you were a gobbler and you heard a lonely hen, that was probably pretty exciting.
Well, it was, and I forget how many years leading up to that where there was no hunting, but there were birds. They were establishing, the flocks, and reintroduced from Missouri, I think, in exchange for rough grouse, if I remember right. And it's an amazing success story. It really is. And you're right about bird numbers being down. That has happened across the entire spectrum of wild turkeys, all subspecies. And it's because, and if you look at it, does correlate. You can talk about habitat and everything else, but it all correlates to the fur market.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's 90% fur based. It's raccoon, skunk, and possum.
Yeah.
And it's nesting. It's not killing adult birds. It's not coyotes getting that's what it is.
Well,
We've talked about that quite a bit too, and Mark and I have joked that every turkey hunter should pick up a 5-pack of dog proofs.
I agree,
and what a difference it could make. And you talk about birds not that long ago being a rare thing. I'm 35, and I remember the first wild turkey I saw, and I thought I was looking at a velociraptor.
Oh yeah,
and it wasn't long after Jurassic Park it hit the movie theaters, and this bird was in my neighborhood of all places. And my folks live in a little rural, neighborhood amongst some agricultural ground, and people drove from the city near where we lived and around the area to come look at this thing.
Sure.
And they looked at it like it was a dinosaur walking there. And it wasn't terribly long after that. I suppose I was about 7 that my dad started hunting Merriam's in the Black Hills, and when he'd come back from that trip and he'd have that bird, it was just the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so my I guess movement into turkey hunting is somewhat similar. And I had trapped as a kid for muskrats and was a really, really bad predator trapper, but I made a go of it anyway. And nobody my age does it. And now Mark and I talk about this often, how few people trap, because there is no market, of course, for any kind of pelt or hide or anything like that. And certainly for nesting birds of any kind, not just wild turkeys, but pheasants and ruffed grouse and Hungarian partridge and all these other songbirds and things like this. Like, I imagine an unchecked populace of mesopredators is going to have a significant impact on the populations of those birds. And without anybody out there doing it, because now there's no incentivization to do it, of course it's going to get rampant and it's going to get a bit out of control.
And I think it's about there.
Yeah.
From what I'm seeing, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, everywhere, Wisconsin for sure, Minnesota. It's just, and like you said, it's unchecked.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, unless they spend a lot of time in the woods, how many raccoons.
Sure.
I mean, they outnumber possum and skunk 10 to 1 easily. But I have frames from trail cameras where there's 40, 50, 60 raccoons
Oh my
in one
gosh.
Just
in
moving
one
through.
frame.
Just moving through.
People don't realize. Well, we're river bottom land
Yeah.
there, and we
Oh.
also have land in Kansas, and it's a lot of creek bottoms.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Now, Mark and I were just shed hunting this weekend, and I think we found 5 raccoon carcasses,
Yeah.
all of which were within 365 days. I mean, some of them were still just yet desiccated. They hadn't even been,
Yeah.
scattered or anything like that. We did see wild turkeys fleetingly,
We did.
but to find Mark found the only shed, and
What was left? It was more of a fossil.
Yeah, it was probably
Oh, it's
10 years
already
old.
chewed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was not this year's. I mean,
Oh, okay.
it had moss on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, we could radiocarbon date it, but to know that we turn up, we'll say 5 carcasses on a relatively small plot of land, all of which had been killed within a year. I mean, we found more raccoon carcasses than we found deer carcasses
sure.
or
Yeah.
anything like that. So
Yeah.
it is a kind of an interesting thing. And every year we threaten to load up on dog proofs and go try to do our diligence and duty.
It would make a heck of a difference.
Sure.
I mean, just to try and get the raccoon population.
Sure.
I'm not real mad at possum, although they are nest raiders. They're not as prolific as raccoon are, number one, but they're also number one tick destroyer on the planet.
Sure.
So they're kind of beneficial
Sure.
that way. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Recently did a podcast with Dr. Mike Chamberlain, Wild Turkey Doc, and I mean, one of the things that we talked about was what we're talking about right now, but just the impact of like mesopredators like raccoons, and if done properly to the right degree, which is heavily in the right areas, it can have an impact on with at the right time. It's interesting how many factors come into play to actually make a realistic impact on them.
It's interesting too that I don't know if the average turkey hunter has noticed this, but it has also made the hen nesting habits has evolved a little bit because of those predators. So typically, eastern wild turkey hen will seek out her nesting area. Typically used to be in a wooded area. It's no longer is. Now it's on the fringes and especially out in good cover fields, and that's because of the predators.
Sure.
So they're aware of that and that predation, and so they're moving to those areas, and it's affected the behavior of the hens also, which can help you as a hunter to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. When you're I'm switching gears back into carving, I could talk about everything turkeys all day long. When you look at a piece of wood, like how do you visualize that this is in there?
Okay.
Like, where do you start?
Here's how I start. I generally, especially when I'm doing stuff like this, I take measurements from an actual bird,
Okay.
whether that be a Canadian goose or a snow goose or a wild turkey or a jake or a gobbler. I mean, we keep going down the ladder, a hen or whatever, and I'll take life-size measurements. Basically, what I'm trying to do is establish a very accurate profile, side view, okay? And once I get that, I do all my drawings and patterns all by hand on butcher paper. I mean, just nothing fancy. And then when I get that profile refined to, for example, that jake there, when I got that, the posturing and everything where I think, okay, that's what we're looking for, then I go ahead and do a top view. In other words, looking down. Just
Okay.
basically trying to get the the pattern for the width, the overall width, the widest point on that skeleton or on that body. And then again, the posture of the tail, spread or tight or whatever. Anyway, and then from there I glue up a big block of basswood, northern basswood, and some of them are 40, 50 pounds or more, and I put it on a carving stand. I carve all with hand tools, chisels, and I start carving. I draw that pattern, top and bottom, and get it roughed out, profile, and then the top view roughed out, and big, wide hand tools, very sharp stuff. And I prefer to carve that way over with power tools. I don't enjoy all the dust and fuzz, and so I have more control over the piece with hand tools. And once it gets, I'll show you guys maybe afterwards. I got some photos of when I get it all carved. It's just wood colored, and it's pretty cool looking. And then I start to detail feather groups, etc., and then from there just keep going until it's time to paint them.
And then you paint them all yourself by hand as well?
Yeah, all by hand with brushes, no airbrush or anything like that. I've been doing this for so long. I mean, I just put on. The turkeys are pretty easy. To be honest, even a hen or a gobbler or a jake, I get them all dark brown, the entire bird, the whole thing, 100% dark brown. From there, I just bring up the different colors in the different feather groups and the iridescence, and they don't take me very long. I can paint a life-size turkey about 2.5 hours.
No kidding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You ever hunt with your blocks?
I haven't hunted with the actual blocks. They're just so heavy.
Yeah, sure.
And most of the decoy companies, they keep the originals. So the way I work that, it's just a contract thing. They say, Dave, we want a set of like Lucky Duck, and Haley was there then. We want a hen and a standing jake, and I just give them a price for those 2 originals, and they get to keep them. I'm hoping they're hanging on to them. They're pretty cool. It'd be cool to have that whole collection. I mean, yeah.
I can't imagine that they aren't.
Yeah.
That would seem foolhardy. When you're getting down to like the finer points, like you're getting really close to being done, and it's like, oh, maybe you have like, the foot area or like the neck where it's a little bit more delicate. Do you ever get nervous?
Boy, I get asked that a lot. No.
Have you ever had to be like, honey, where's the wood glue?
No, I have. I've dropped had a few pieces, where I've been chiseling on them, and the screws came out of the bottom of the carving stand, and one popped off, and I've had to glue the head back on or something.
Sure.
But I don't get real. I mean, I'm very comfortable. Like I said, guys, I mean, it's just second nature. Seriously. And very blessed to have, to be able to do it.
Well, so you do the carving, like you said, you send it off to the decoy manufacturer, like a Lucky Duck.
Yeah.
They send it off, and I guess the molds are made off of
CNC solid cast aluminum.
Okay.
So that's a block of aluminum, probably like that.
Yeah.
And then it goes in, and you guys are familiar with CNC, obviously. It goes in CNC, and then however that's read, computerized wise, and it just does the 2 halves.
Sure.
And then, of course, it'll have a vent hole for as they pour the stuff. Most of these are, I'm going to guess. I don't know exactly that whole science, but I'm going to guess it's rotational and molded, because they're about that thick of plastic when they get done hollow. Yeah. These Lucky Duck designed to have them semi-inflatable, I would call it. In other words, you could take the air, they got a valve, you can take the air out. You can't really roll them up real small, but you can certainly get them smaller than that. Dakotas you cannot. That's a little thicker. That would be that one there.
Okay,
It's a little
gotcha.
thicker material. Yeah.
I'm just remembering back when I started hunting turkeys, and I had the foam decoys.
Oh, the
You know-
old feather flex.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
And, inevitably the paint would come off in the first
Oh, yeah.
15 to 20 minutes.
Oh,
And so you'd end up with this gray silhouette of
That's what it was.
what appeared to be a turkey. And I often thought that certainly that wasn't why I was wasn't killing birds. I think it was mostly just the birds didn't want to play that day, or the fact that I couldn't call or know where to set up necessarily. But yeah, it's really come a long ways. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, from
Nowadays,
oh, yeah.
especially.
I don't know. I'm sure somebody out here listening has probably done this before, but if you've ever taken walkabout from your spread and you come around from a different angle and all of a sudden you see turkeys in your decoys and it turns out they're just your decoys,
Yeah, that's right.
You're running a good set of
There,
decoys.
I would call them. They've gone from sort of realistic to ultra realistic. I mean, everybody, and nowadays, even since Lucky Duck and Dakota, we've got Avian X now with. I think they are even a little beyond the super realism.
Yeah.
That they're almost stylized.
Yeah,
They're that
yeah.
cool looking, but they've gone a long ways, and they do make a huge difference.
Sure.
There's no doubt about it. That bird there, it would kill both of these. It would kill. They're just they're so effective.
They are. Yeah, I've woken up from many a springtime
Nap.
turkey nap and been like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, no, I put it there. That's me. I did that.
You know what's funny is I like that we can all laugh at that because everybody who's ever hunted turkeys more than
just-
one time,
Oh, yeah.
Open
You
up the
know-
old peepers. You're like, oh.
sun comes out.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
a chilly morning, but then the sun comes out, kind of warms you up a little bit. and
It's
then-
hard not to
yeah,
nap.
No,
Oh, when that hits you in the chest, man, it's over.
Yeah.
that's too funny.
Well, to do this, Dave, to make these carvings that ultimately end up as these beautiful, realistic decoys, you've probably studied turkey posture a little bit, I imagine, yes?
Oh yeah.
So I think we're finally going to get to the topic of today's discussion. Talking about, the different postures. Like each one of these decoys on the table, a little bit different. We've got Jake decoys, we've got Tom decoys, we've got hen decoys, strutters, submissive, upright hen here looks like. I've seen feeding hen decoys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it really runs the gamut, and they all have their purpose and their place, and I think that's what we're hoping to figure out today is the purpose and the place. So next time we go out in the woods, beyond just startling ourselves when we wake up from a nap, we know when and what to use.
And perfectly said, Mark, because if one from the outside looking in, the average turkey hunter is going to go and, well, I'm going to upgrade my decoy, so I'm going to get a turkey decoy, period. And so one might think, and I think this is probably true with all manufacturers, that their reasoning for certain postures and turkey decoys was done mainly for the marketing end of it.
Gotcha.
There was no real thought put into the posturing for the actual application what time of year during the turkey season as a hunter. I'm pretty convinced that's the way it started. Now, when Dakota and Lucky Duck both contacted me, I asked them if I could design the decoy posture-wise for certain applications during the turkey season, which is a little bit of a twist.
Yeah.
And so still to this day, that's not that important until you realize it can make you a super successful turkey hunter if you understand what I'm talking about. I think I said earlier, the average turkey hunter still to this day is going to go to the store and just buy a decoy, or a couple of them, and go out turkey hunting, regardless of the time of year, and stick those two decoys or one out here in front of him and sit by a tree or in his blind and hope for the best.
Which does work sometimes.
It does. And I mean, just like a lot of things will work with turkeys. I mean, I've had turkeys come to some of the worst calling I've ever heard in my life. And I mean, I've had turkeys walk into the side of my blind, okay? But, which tells you there's things going on in their little nutshell of a brain that they can't get beyond. But I'm talking about really understanding dynamics of wild turkeys during the spring hunting season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we can kind of walk through the season, as it progresses. I think a lot of seasons open, I'd say predominantly mid-April. I'd say across the board. That's where, there's some that are earlier.
Sure.
But what does that look like for you and your decoy strategy, and which ones are you going to implement to complement just the timing? We talked a little bit earlier that we got kind of a pretty mild winter /
right.
early spring going on here right now. How might, weather conditions, affect things? So, let's maybe just kind of go walk us through a turkey season and what's on your mind there.
The best way to look at it would be this way. So you've got, no matter where, Minnesota's very, very similar to Wisconsin. They got 5 or 6 time periods.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the upper Midwest, and most of the Midwest for that matter, will not necessarily have time periods. Some of them will have a split season, and some will just have a season goes all the way through. None of that really matters if you just break it down into like 3 major periods during the spring turkey season, the mating season. Okay, so the very first, I call it the early period, you've got 2 things happening. You've got the winter birds all together, pretty much flocked up the winter flock. Sometimes that will stretch, depending on the weather, will stretch out early or later, cold weather versus warm weather. All right. Our birds were about to start really breaking up until we got this cold snap. That's why I said earlier it was a godsend, I think. All right, so you've got that early period, which then goes right from spring breakup, flock breakup. Everybody's heard about this stuff, but how do you apply it? And then it goes right into what I call the early breeding season. There's still hens being bred. There's been breeding going on in the flocks. If you've ever observed them, I've seen a lot of breeding this year. Early March, usually it's this time of year and later, but I've seen that going on. Then from there, that first period, you've got what I call the meat and potatoes of the turkey season. And that's when gobblers are seeking out hens. The hens are pretty much together. Gobblers are starting to break up and try to find individual hens to breed. That takes place through, if you had to go Wisconsin way, I would say from the latter part of the second period all the way through 4th. So that is your biggest chunk. The last period is the tail end, where you've got gobblers that no longer have hens with them, are seeking hens that are still wanting to be bred or needing to be bred. And then you've also got nesting that is starting to start there and go into the time period through the whole hunting season. So you've got those 3 things going on. If you understand that, it will really help you with your decoy hunting. Now, I think we've all heard, I don't use decoys anymore. The turkeys I hunt around here, they're decoy shy. That's an impossibility. And the reason it's an impossibility is because they don't have the brain power to decipher that. What's happening is they're not playing the game with decoys at the right time of year and proper decoy placement. So let's start from the early ones. And this is where a lot of guys screw up their whole season. If you have an early period tag, say starting out, even in Illinois where they run, where the whole season just starts and ends, in states like that, the first part of your hunting season for at least a week and a half, about a 10-day period. If you put a hen decoy out, you're going to have problems. And when I do my seminars, I'll ask the attendees, what does anyone know why? Hardly anybody ever does. Here's what's happening. Those birds have been together all winter. The hens have all been together all winter. The gobblers have been in their group all winter, and the jakes have been in their group all winter, and the very late jakes born late in the season are still with those hen groups. Those hens, after 5 months of winter, they know each other at a glance. They seriously know it because they're a social bird. And that social behavior dictates that. So when you put a hen out in the first week and a half or so of season and you have those birds skirt your decoys, it's not because they're decoy shy. It's because they don't know that bird. And that's what happens. So then hunters assume, well, boy, these birds don't like decoys. No, not the case. The ticket is put a single jake decoy out, and you will have birds come right to you, because the hens don't care about that jake decoy. They also don't know that bird because they've not been with those birds all winter.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a difference. Now, when I say they know each other, they don't know each other like we do, like your neighbors. But they do, from the time they're hatched, they imprint on everything. And so they know each other individually that way. So you'll find a huge difference in your success that first week and a half or so by just using a single jake decoy.
So what does that single jake, what response does it evoke from, like, maybe the gobbler that you're after then?
Well, the gobbler is a different story, but a lot of times you will have gobblers following hens around in that early season.
Okay.
We've all seen it. You'll have a dozen hens show up, and then here comes 3-4 gobblers still together, and they'll come bringing up the rear. Well, if the hens avoid that because you have a hen decoy out,
gotcha,
you're not going to kill that gobbler.
Sure. Here's a question about decoys then specifically, because Mark and I and a couple other people we know, we've got some cursed decoys that we've used. Like, there's just something about that particular style of decoy that doesn't work well. Is there a particular posture in that early part of the season that's a better play?
On the posturing of the with a jake
with
or
a
a hen?
jake.
With a single jake?
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm glad I was going to point that out. And the best way to do that is with a jake that is, I would call them kind of submissive.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, no half strut deal going on, something like this here, a standing one that's kind of got some half strut posture, which with a tight tail, yes. But the key to that one is he has a bit of an arrogant look with his beak slightly raised, which is a little challenging to a mature, a 2-year-old or more gobbler. Mm-hmm. Both very effective. This one is much more, I would call it more docile in posture than that one, but they both would work really well. One of the keys to setting your decoys, I'll mention this too, is don't put the decoys, a lot of guys make this, don't put the decoy straight out in front of where you're setting, whether that be against a tree in the timber or in a blind. And there's a reason for that, because when those birds, whatever birds you do that have interest, you don't need to create any sort of movement. It's almost impossible to fool a turkey's eyes. And any little thing that doesn't look right, and you're straight behind that decoy. So I always tell people, always put your decoys to the left or to the right of where you're set up. Something very simple but very, very effective. Also with the jake decoy, you want to have the head, if you're the hunter, at some angle towards you, because that will dictate how that bird moves into that decoy. All right? If you have it the other way around, it could put them out here, out of range, where just that difference, he could work to the head of the Jake decoy. Now with hens, it's the opposite. You want to have the tail towards you.
Really?
Exactly.
I guess I've always been of the thinking, I've always had my decoys, quartering, toward me, thinking
Right.
that's going to be the, I want to help dictate the trajectory my decoys are on, hoping that, that Tom's going to follow that same trajectory.
And what you're saying is it's common thought.
Yeah.
And you would think that. But if you really dive into that dynamics, just simply putting the tail at some of the hen the opposite of this, at some angle towards you, the hunter, is going to make a huge difference. Because that'll bring the bird around to the back side of the hen.
Oh.
That's how, if you ever watch how they approach, they always approach the head end of a Jake and always the tail end of the hen, 90% of the time. And that little positioning thing will help your decoy setups.
From the biology standpoint, is that Tom trying to see how receptive that hen is? If she turns and looks at him, is that some sort of indicator, do you suppose?
It can be. I think it's instinct.
Okay.
I don't think that it's anything that is purposely thought about from the turkey's point of view. I think it's just purely instinct.
He just knows what end he's interested in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's a real small thing, but it really makes a difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's fascinating, because I've always been a hen decoy hunter, because that's what I was told to do many, many years ago. I can promise you I've got an A-season tag. I'm taking the hen out of the repertoire.
Don't even put it out.
No, I've got a submissive Jake. That cursed decoy that I was telling you about is a pretty aggressive-looking Jake decoy.
Yeah.
And I've had Nebraska, Missouri, Minnesota, and Wisconsin hunts where I'll get gobblers coming in a 2-pack or a 3-pack, and they will stop hard at between 40 and 80 yards. They'll either just stop or they'll circle in a big circle, and they'll look at that decoy and they will not commit. They'll gobble their brains out, but they'll see that decoy and they'll, no way. And I think you had the same deke.
Well, but I bought it because my brother had that same decoy.
Yep.
And he's like, Mark, all they need to do is see it. It's automatic. And he was killing birds like crazy.
What's the posture of that?
It's a little bit more strut than this. And then the head is buried down.
It's kind of
more tucked.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's all red.
Okay.
And I had a bird in Missouri. This was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Beautiful morning, birds everywhere. We're hunting a beautiful clover field in the midst of this big valley. Birds everywhere. And right at fly down, a Tom comes walking in, and he gets to 80 yards, and I am not kidding you. I've got a very good friend as a witness. That bird stopped for 2 hours, and he did not take a step. And so we kind of let him be for probably the first 45 minutes, and maybe I'd give just a soft, like a 5-note cadence yelp, very soft. And he'd kind of go into looking like he was going to drop a strut or maybe let a gobble out, but he never did. And he stayed in a spot the size of a hula hoop for 2 hours. I finally got fed up with him, and I took my slate call and I took my diaphragm, and I started
fighting first.
Yep. Nothing changed his mood. And I finally told my friend, I said, I'm going to get up, I'm going to walk at that bird, and I'm going to see how close I can get and kill him. And I got to, I'll say, 40.
Really?
Yep. And something I didn't feel right shooting him. I thought maybe something was wrong with him or something. And he just kind of walked off. Well, in the interim, another bird had snuck around. and let off a gobble. I quick run back to the tree, and this bird hits the field, and he comes out red, white, and blue, and he ran full strut 80 yards across his field, got in a fight with that decoy, and I killed him at 8 yards. And so one bird looked at that and said, no way. Another bird looked at that and said, let's party.
I think it's that AVNX HDR, right?
No, it's an avian decoy.
Yeah.
And I've got a submissive Jake, or a
Oh,
more
it is.
submissive.
It is an avian.
Yeah.
Oh.
They don't make it anymore.
It's their old. I know which one it is.
It's like
then.
like a quarter strut or a half strut Jake.
Yeah, and it's not a real big decoy, right?
It's dimensionally, I think it's smaller than a full size tom decoy.
I believe it was. Yeah.
But I've had that same thing happen with that particular decoy, as has Eric, who's not here today, and a couple other people I know, that most of the time it seems as if the bird would rather just walk away from it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I would like to analyze that posture on that particular decoy. I'm not sure I have the answer.
sure.
I think I at least the one that I have is in my truck right now.
Is it?
Okay. I may
I gave mine away.
I might have to do a post
the bird
podcast.
that came running in.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Oh, I can tell you all about him.
how old a bird was he?
Mature bird.
Yeah, 3-year-old, 2-year-old.
Probably 3. So he had. This is interesting. He had avian pox. Have you ever seen a bird with that?
On their head, yeah.
Yep. And so he had obscured vision in both eyes.
Yeah.
And his beard, he had 3 or 4 strands that were about 1.5 times the length of this, and the rest of them were about like a Jake
Oh my
beard.
goodness.
Good. I mean, full size mature bird, but he had occluded vision.
Well, the vision might have been part of it.
Sure.
The reason I asked you is I guarantee you that bird that would not come in
Yeah.
was old as the hills.
Sure. Not looking for a fight.
I'm talking a limb hanger.
Yeah.
And that's a posture. When you mentioned how he reacted,
Yeah.
you can actually age these birds before you ever get them close to you just by knowing how they act.
Sure.
And that is typical of a really old bird.
Been there, done that. Not looking for a fight.
Yeah. I mean, not that he's that smart.
Yep.
It's just that he's been around.
Yep.
And something was like, I don't know.
Yep.
You know,
Sure.
one of those deals. The real giveaway for old birds, and you'll see this a lot in 5th and 6th period in Wisconsin. I refer to our time periods because that's what we have here. But your later part of the season, and we're probably getting ahead of ourselves a little bit decoy-wise, but when you see a bird that's coming in and walking, folded up, half strut, never full strut, walk, half strut, never full strut, that's a 5-6-year-old bird.
Really?
Really?
Hands down. And every time I see it, that's what it is. That's an old gobbler. He'll have great big.
He's got money in his wallet and he knows where it came from, and he's just
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the ones that generally run in,
Yep.
some of them tripping over themselves, trying to strutting, running. Those are 2 or 3-year-olds.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the bird I'm after.
That's the one all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest spurred bird I ever killed, and he was a big, physically large turkey. Now we're getting into story time, but maybe there's something to it. I don't know. I was calling at this group of jakes that was kind of out in this in the middle of this field, and I was limited to the tree line. I just didn't have any cover out in the field, and they pay me no, never mind, right? So I finally jumped on my box call, which Eric likes to make fun of, which killed another big turkey with it last year. And I just started hammering on that thing. I was like, what do I have to lose? Well, those birds didn't care, but a hen that I wasn't aware of got fired up. So I started fighting with her. A gobbler that was with her would only gobble when she would talk, though. And, I mean, I called her into less than 10 yards, and he kind of stayed on the outside, but I think I shot him at like 35 yards or something like that. But man, I mean, talk
Big
about
hook.
Big hook song. That was the Wisconsin bird.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Everything you said there.
And I did have
everything you said.
I did have my little Jake decoy out. Actually, I ended up, because of just the circumstances, it was just just a few feet in front of me. But that hen, it actually held her long enough and kept her, like, she saw me a little bit too, but like that, anyway, like it ended up working out and killed that bird. But he would only gobble when she would talk to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've encountered birds like that. They had to know this particular hen or they would not gobble.
Sure. Yeah.
Which can help you too as a hunter. It's a good reason maybe to mix up your calling a little bit. Even if you're a diaphragm guy, maybe try a cutter call versus something else. And like you said, a box call. And box calls, if you're good at playing them, every box call will have a little bit different tone to it. I mean, it can help you as a caller. Getting back to our decoys, though, now as we leave that first, can I go talk
please.
about, as we leave that what I like to think of it as maybe 10 days, give or take.
Okay.
All right? Now you're getting into the bulk or the meat of the spring turkey season. And that's when you can just about pull out all the stops, except there's certain things you should think about. First of all, one of the most effective right after that period when you should only have a jake is going to be the hen on the ground with the jake standing over it.
Okay.
Okay. Even better than just a hen or two hens. Okay. So like I said, leading into this, you can just about go through everything during that. That's almost twice as long as that first part of the season.
Mm-hmm. Is that because there's just like so many things that could be going on at once?
There is.
Like you've got multiple parts of the season taking place with different birds at different times.
Yeah, and you've got all kinds of things as you coming off of that first initial period where a lot of guys screw up, like I said, because they got hen decoys out.
Mm-hmm.
So once you know that, now you can, but I do think one of the very best setups right after that is a jake with, even a upright hen, just stick her on the ground, put a jake standing over it.
Okay.
Very, very effective. Ask my son Aaron. I think it's his favorite setup.
Okay.
He's killed a lot of birds doing that. And then from there...
Does the jake posture matter much there?
Not really.
Not
it's
really.
just the fact that there's a jake there. I would not go to a strutting bird at this point, any kind. A jake, half strutter, or anything. Even though, you can get away with these. There's all exceptions. It depends then. Once you have this dynamics figured out, then it depends on the age classes of the gobblers. And we just talked about that. A lot of guys pay no attention to that. I don't blame them. If you're just going turkey hunting, Dave, why the hell do I need to know that? Well, you don't, really. But it will help you as a hunter to know that. So then right after that that's very effective right after that first 10-day or so period. Then you can incorporate just jakes, or not jakes, just hens, or a jake and a couple hens. That will take you all the way through to what starts to get to be where the hens are leaving the gobblers and seeking out nesting sites. Now, a couple things are happening then. First of all, what is going to trigger that, for the most part, is going to be photoperiodism, which we talked, the amount of daylight in the day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just nature's way of dictating that everything works out the way it's supposed to. All right? But also with that, and hunters rarely think about that, is the temperature of the ground. Mm-hmm. A hen is not going to go lay an egg on frozen ground, nor snow. So The way to find out, you don't need to be taking the temperature of the ground like a farmer would maybe for planting, but just look at what's emerging.
Sure.
When you start to get green up, that early green up, that's a sign the ground temperature is conducive to nesting.
Okay.
And that's when then you kind of want to be aware of that, because rapidly this decoy setup we just talked about, 2 different dynamics. This third one coming in, you want to be aware of that so you'll be ready for it. And that's when you want to go to one single hen.
Okay.
And if you see that the gobblers are no longer, like the scenario you said, the hen drug in that big old gobbler, see, that's what's going on, all that big part of the breeding season. As that starts to where those gobblers no longer are finding the hens, are trying to seek out more hens, that's a good time to just switch to a single hen. Nothing else. Don't worry about anything else.
Sure.
It's also a good time to just put a strutter out.
Okay.
Okay? The full strut decoy is super effective that time of year.
Without a hen.
No hen.
Okay.
Don't need it. Just a strutter.
Sure.
Yep. Either one or the other. And that'll take you right through the end of the season.
Sure.
Now, you can dictate whether a hen would be more effective or a strutter depending on where you're hunting in your particular habitat. If you've got a good number of gobblers, then the strutter is going to be super effective.
Sure.
Super effective, because they're going to start to get very territorial, pissed off at each other, and that the fighting mode again, etc. Whereas if you have, they're kind of few and far between. I'm not saying that you don't have good turkey populations, but they're really spread out because of the breeding season. I would just use a single hen. And again, positioning is very important. And as long as I mention positioning, this is something I don't think a lot of turkey hunters realize, and this is pure instinct on behalf of both hens and gobblers. If you're hunting field birds, a couple things to keep in mind is don't early morning, pink light, pre-sun up, pink light. Don't ever set up on the east side of the field.
Why not?
Because that's where the sun is going to hit first.
So I've wanted to know about this for as long as I've been driving and looking at turkeys. I have a resident flock near my home, and they roost daily on the same ridge.
Mm-hmm.
One slope is easterly
Yep.
facing. One slope is westerly. On sunny days, they never land on the sunny side.
No.
They always land on the shaded side.
Yep.
On an overcast day, it'll be one way or the other. But without, I would say better than 75% probability.
That is so accurate.
That's crazy.
And do I know why? Hell no. I just know I've seen.
Sure.
I just know I've seen it so many times. They will fly down and walk to the sunny side.
Sure.
Now, here's where the sunny side becomes important. Well, first of all, let's back up. So
Yeah.
if you know that,
Yeah.
you could initially set up on an angle, not so much straight west, but maybe north or south, which gives you an advantage for both ways. Then if you have the ability to move, these are field birds again, but that, a lot of people, you've heard about, read articles, well, that's that gobbler strut zone.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that there really is no such thing. And I hate to call BS to some of this stuff, but I've been hunting turkeys a long dang time. What it actually is, it's the brightest or the highest spot in that particular area that you're hunting in, whether that be in the timber or on a field. I don't care if the rise in that field is 14 inches. That's where that gobbler's going to go.
So I've hunted some real flat country.
Yes.
And noticed that same thing.
It's true.
Just the most subtle, just a couple feet.
Yes.
That's where they are.
Pure instinct again. That bird was designed with all that iridescence to show off for the hen. So instinctively, he's going to try to find the best advantage he can to get her attention. And it's really what you just said, Mark. It's so, I mean, you wouldn't even think that was a higher spot, but that becomes the strut zone. And in the timber, if there's a spot where the sun is hitting and you've had this gobbler, you've been established a conversation with him and he's interested, make sure you set up within gun range or bow range of that spot where it's getting the most light.
Sure.
Either sunlight or the brightest light on an overcast day. He's going to go right there. I guarantee you he'll walk right there.
Sure.
Now that will help you a lot as a hunter.
That's his lek.
Yes.
Aha.
Yes.
Yeah, what about field birds, timber birds a little bit less predictable in that manner then?
I think difficulty-wise, field birds can be a real pain in the butt. And I mean, everybody's had encounters with big fields and birds that they just won't leave it. I mean, I'll admit, they're hard to hunt. Of course, nowadays, there's things like, what do they call it, with the fans?
Or
fanning,
they reap them? Yep.
Reaping. I mean, I've seen it and watched it and been with people that I don't know, it's not my thing. It does work. I know that for a fact because I had a friend that uses it all the time and kills a lot of birds. Those birds are real susceptible to reaping or fanning, just crawling out with a fan. And my buddy Mark Drury does it all the time. I mean, it's just one of those things. Timber birds, I think, are really interesting. Two things. If you're in hill country, cut the distance in half from what you think that bird is away from you. Just don't even question it. If you think he's 300 yards, he's 150.
Sure.
Okay, gotcha.
And as the season progresses, the more foliage that comes on, it absorbs a lot of that sound. I mean, I've had birds I thought were quite a ways away, and they were, all of a sudden I hear them, there they are, 50 yards, spitting and drumming.
Yep.
So that stuff, I think, is every hunter's responsibility just as you grow as a hunter and to learn the sport. I think that's part of it. But what we've been talking about here, it's so common that most hunters don't think about that. I have a decoy, I have a shotgun, and I'll just stick it out here and I'm going turkey hunting. And so I hope all this helps.
Oh yeah.
That we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's incredibly insightful, and as you talk through it, it's like, okay, and that makes sense. That makes sense. And I've done a variety of the things that we've talked through today at different times. Oftentimes, just because that's what I chose to do that day, not because it was like, oh, it's the early season, so I'm going to do this,
I think every turkey hunter, if they're pretty crazy about it and find themselves doing it in routine, at least for me anyway, every time I kill a turkey, I go, that's how you do it. and then I try it the next year, and I'm like, nope, they've stifled me again.
It's, I think, what makes it one of the greatest sports. Hunting sports on the planet is what you've just said.
Well,
It really is a chess game of sorts. And in order to win at this chess game, I think to at least tip the advantage your way a little bit, some of this stuff has really made a difference. And it will help any turkey hunter. You mentioned the timber a little while ago. One of the things a lot of guys don't think about also is in the timber, if you have birds in the timber, I like to set up on them what I call almost a blind spot area. In other words, I like to be in a shadow, not in the sun, in a shadow area, heavily shadowed. I like to be within gun range of that sunny spot, but I also like to be at some angle that when that bird does show up, because most of the time in those timber settings, you've already established the direction of that bird. A lot of times that's, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's later on after your initial setup. And so I like to be at an angle where when that bird first shows up, you can kill him.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just simple as that. And all you got to do is kind of, survey your surroundings and go, okay, he's going to go for that right there, and he's over here. It's just a matter of taking a couple seconds and ascertaining, well, where should I sit down?
Sure. Yeah, I always, in those situations, I'm always trying to be like, if he wants to see me, he's like, keep him looking till the last minute. And when he looks over,
yes,
hopefully that last time.
Yeah. Yeah, I love those birds that are looking, heads white, and you just let them come.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you using a decoy in that situation?
Timber birds, if you are, I do. But one thing about timber birds and decoys, you have to make sure they see it.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's so much going on in the timber. Now, I don't know down here, but up our way, we have prickly ash, and that stuff's just nasty. It's everywhere. And a lot of times these birds have trouble seeing the decoy. But I will set up in the timber if it's a good open timber woods, big timber, and all the time. I just kind of, okay, he's over there, he's going to, and I stick the decoy out.
What are your thoughts on, and this could be, open country or possibly in the timber. I go back and forth, and I guess it is situational. There's some times where I think it can be better to not have a decoy and keep them looking.
In the timber.
Yeah.
Oh, especially. Yeah. When you just asked me the question, do I use them in the timber? Yes, but a lot of times I don't, just because of what you just said, Mark. Yeah, I mean, I like to, if this bird is interested and you're talking to him, I like to just, like I said, get an angle on that where he may hopefully appear, and just let him try and find that hen. Now, you do run a risk sometimes without a decoy. I mean, where the bird is, well, I know that calling was from right there. If it's open enough to do that, I would put a decoy out.
Yeah, I was going to contrast that same thing too, because it's like you could have the opposite effect where they're like, I hear a turkey and I do not see a turkey.
Well, and I've had them come in and turn around and leave.
Yeah,
because they just, especially older birds. Again, it's usually one of them that just barely spreads his tail. And he looks, and then he walks, and he does that. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go.
I love it. Well, if I wasn't pumped about turkey season, I certainly am very pumped right now, particularly with a few of my new decoy tactics. Dave, did we miss anything?
Not really. Great question.
Hopefully we don't miss any turkeys this spring.
No, and I don't think we missed anything. Tried to cover everything that would be helpful. Of course, all three of us know there are a lot of other things we could talk about when it comes to turkey hunting, but yeah, I think with what the focus was supposed to be, I think great questions, guys.
Well, I started with a quote, an excerpt from this article, so I'm going to end with one as well, Dave. And it's towards the tail end of this article. Again, I want to provide credit from Matthew Brewer on the NWTF website. It says, Nancy Constantine's cucumber salad is world class. Is that true? That
is absolutely 100% true. We host turkey hunters every year, and I also host a national carving workshop.
Okay.
And so that's how it's become famous. It's that good.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. He backs it up.
There it is.
I would have expected that.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
what a pleasure.
No, this is great. Thanks for making the drive down, and it sounds like it was a nice drive. Saw some turkeys along the way. 'Tis the season.
Yeah.
So, but all the information is just fantastic, invaluable. Hopefully, all the folks out there can use these tips to maybe bring that gobbler in close enough for a shot this year. So
there we go. Maybe sometime down the road we can do another part of turkey hunting.
Absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Let's lock it in.
All right.
Can't wait. So, all right, everybody. The right decoy at the right time. It does matter. Dave, thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.